Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. We're going to get started with our webinar today, Great Content Strategy on Campus. My name is Becky Vardaman. I think a lot of you have been on our webinars before. If so, welcome back. I am VP of Strategy here at Converge, and really, if I'm getting down to some of my favorite things to talk about, content strategy is right up there. Content strategy, Google Analytics are kind of my heart and soul, and I love these things, SEO as well. So I'm excited to spend some time talking to you guys about this and give you some really good examples of, yes, you can actually create really good content in higher ed with our complex website. So a couple of housekeeping things. Absolutely, this will be recorded, and we will send you an email afterwards with a link to the recording that you can watch back. So don't try to take a bunch of notes. You'll get all of the slides. Also, we're going to leave a little bit of time towards the end if you want to ask some questions. So I'm actually going through this right now. I'm probably not going to have the chat window open. So if I don't see it, that's because I'm waiting for the end so that I can make sure I'm talking to you guys well now. So hold on to your questions till the end, and we'll for that. Also, I wanted to let you guys know we have a couple of really great webinars coming up on our website that you can come out and sign up for. So in April, still we have social media for higher education. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today will actually kind of overlap a little bit with that social media because content really is in all these different places. Additionally, we have one in May, on May 1st, called Adult and Graduate Student Marketing, How It's Changed and Have You. Brenda Harms is going to present this, and if any of you guys have ever been on one of Brenda's webinars before, you'll know that they are a lot of fun. So, and very, very informative too. So definitely we don't want to miss that one with Brenda. We are about to actually set up another one, so stay tuned for our next one in May, which will be on SEO. SEO has changed a lot in the past even 6 months, let alone maybe 2 years. So we're going to give you a nice primer on what's changed and how to really stay up to date on your strategy. And I also wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek as some of our people who are our nearest and dearest attending our webinars, wanted to let you guys know that we're planning a conference in Nashville in October this year. So stay tuned for more save the date information on that. We are so fired up about it. It's going to be a really, really cool show. So be sure to keep your eye out for that information as well. A little bit about Converge Consulting. If you aren't familiar with us, welcome, first of all. We are a multi-channel higher education marketing firm, and we focus on digital, inbound, measurement and analytics, research and consulting, and brand creative. So we do a lot of the whole gamut. We're really, really fired up about looking at what's next and making sure that we're on kind of the bleeding edge of what's coming next down the line for higher education marketing. So that's where we kind of fit into the sphere. We have a newsletter that you can come and sign up for to make sure that you hear updates about all of those things I just talked about. So please join us in our newsletter list. So let's get started. Let's talk about content. This is the exciting stuff, right? So what is content strategy? There's a lot of different, really it's become a big buzzword, right? Everybody knows that content strategy is something that you're on this call, right? Which means that you know that that's important. You know that it's one of the cool, really important things to put into your website going forward. Well, really the term has been around, and it was really, really common in the web development circles since the late 90s. And it's really about planning, developing, and managing your content. I think the management piece is sometimes the hardest part, right? We know that the planning and development has to happen to get it developed in the first place, but management is where sometimes it ends up where things get lost, things don't get retired, things aren't necessarily controlled for quality, and then you have to come back in and do the process again. So content strategy. Oops. So is it really worth your time to bother with it? We like to think about it like this hammock. Your institution's brain is really connected to everything else, and you can't really have a strong brand strategy without content strategy to support it. We're talking about from your website and all the information out there to the collateral you're sending out in the mail to even the way that some of your support staff might answer the telephone. All of that feeds into your brand strategy, and it's all supported with the content strategy, the way you talk about yourself, the way you understand your customer, getting that right message to the right person at the right time. So this right here is kind of our process that we use here at Converge to think about content strategy. And it's the process that we're going to use to guide our discussion today. And then at the end, I'd like to show you some examples of really, really cool content that's out there and pieces of it that have been attributed to these different steps. So first of all, we start with the analyze. This is where we go through and we think, what kind of content do we have? Who's in charge of it? Who is our target audience? How are we going to create things for these people? The strategize stage is really looking at what content we need to be creating. Are there holes in what we're doing? How it should be structured? How do we expect people to find it? The create phase is something that most of you have probably been pretty in-depth involved with. It's really going out and making the content. But the real question is, how do we create content that's really good all the time? So making quality content consistently. And three other phases are really laying into this create phase to get that quality consistent, which sometimes can be the biggest battle, right? Measuring. Everything we do here at Converge involves some level of measurement. And that's because we really believe that data can help us make those right decisions in the first place. So we're going to take a little bit of a look into some of the tools that we can use to understand if the content that we have on our site is actually effective. So we'll talk through some of those as well. So let's start with the analyze phase and dig into the content that we have, who's in charge, and what the target audience is, and some tools you can use to answer these questions. So one of the first things that you need to do is go out and make a good inventory and a list of everything you have. I know, easier said than done, right? I'll show you a tool in a minute that will help. But we're thinking about things like not just each page of your site, right? But the website copy that's on those pages. If you have some case studies, I know a lot of people have maybe it's a PDF that you wouldn't normally count in a crawl, or if there's an interactive video somewhere. Webinars are a great tool, or online events. We work with a ton of schools that use online info sessions. If you can record those, then all of a sudden you have content, right, where you were just doing something tactical before. Infographics are all the rage lately. I'm sure you guys have probably even participated in creating some of those. Those really speak to the data trends that people like us are really interested in, making sure that we have the data to back up all of our decisions and making them look really pretty in a nice infographic. Blog posts. I'm going to show you some examples later on of some great student blog posts that also contribute there and how you can highlight those. Videos. Most of you probably have video channels. If you don't, I would seriously consider beefing up your YouTube channel. YouTube is actually, I think, the second largest search engine after Google, search engine in air quotes, for people discovering content. So make sure that you're getting your video channel up, and think of that as content as well. Any photography you might have, you probably have a lot of it sitting on a drive somewhere that you might want to tie into this process. And then also things that are user submitted. So if you're working with students that are providing you with content, some of that stuff is the best content you can get your hands on because it's so organic. So analyzing where your content comes from in the first place is kind of the first critical piece. Don't forget about your offline content. There are pieces there that aren't necessarily what you would think of when you think about content strategy for the web, but think about all of the different things that you can multi-purpose across different channels. So you might have these printed materials that also are available online. Phone scripts. Remember when I mentioned that your admissions counselors, the way they answer the phone might be make or break that relationship with a potential student. Interviews and speeches from notable alumni, lectures from notable alumni or campus visitors, brochures that you might have. View books obviously are packed full with strategies. You spend a lot of time and money on those, so how can you capitalize on using those in other places? And don't forget about historical stuff. Throwback Thursday exists for a reason, right? If you can tie in any of these cool historical pictures or accounts or stories, that's one of the great things we have about being in higher education is we have long rich histories. So don't forget about all of that type of content that you can pull in and include in your content strategy. So when I say you want to make a list of it, there are some different ways to do that. The tool we like to use is a content inventory, and we want it to be quantitative and qualitative. So the idea behind that is that you can see here in this example, we have a navigation title which has all of our pages, and everything has a page number. We have the URL and a bunch more fields off to the right that you see kind of disappearing, right? So the quantitative part of this is we want to make sure every page and every piece of content is accounted for. This is going to be really, really helpful in understanding just from a visual perspective even. Looking through and saying, you know, we have 3 pages that kind of meet this same need, so we could probably get rid of some of it. Or maybe we're missing a whole bunch of information that we need here. So it's helpful from that perspective. The other thing that's really, really helpful about putting together a content inventory and what makes it really worth your time is using these kind of qualitative metrics that I have pulled out here highlighted. So things like, is the page useful and relevant? Is it clear and accurate? Is it complete? Is it usable and findable? What about influential and engaging? And does it match our voice and tone? This is where we really can get down deep into the strategy of the existing current content and realize, answer that question, is our content any good, right? So instead of just saying, yes, we have it, it gives us a clear metric to understand where we should put our priority of rework and which pages really are in the worst shape that need to be in the best shape, right? It helps a lot with those metrics. A tool that we use to help make this a little bit easier, we're actually a beta partner with a tool called Blaze. They do some really, really cool stuff. In fact, the little star diagram on the last slide was from their tool. Basically, what they do is they have a little crawler that goes out and crawls your entire website and creates that initial content inventory for you, which is so helpful. If anybody's ever pulled a content inventory, and imagine how much time that would take, going page by page through your entire website. So we like to use this one. There's lots of other tools out there that do that initial step for you too. So you can go out, get your initial crawl done. The great part about the Blaze tool, though, is that it lets you go through each page in the tool and answer those types of questions about whether the content is really good or not, in addition to some strategic questions too. So that's a tip for you. Content strategy tool Blaze is a great one. Another thing that we need to figure out in this initial analyze stage is now we have a good list of all of our content, right? But my guess is that your content creation process is pretty decentralized. I don't know if I've worked with a school yet that it's not. There are people who are editing all over the university, all over the institution into those pages. So one of the best things we can do in this initial step is figure out who's really in charge of these things. Where are the requests coming from? Who's dictating that strategy that goes with it? Who actually does the writing or the photography or the layout of the page, all of those things? Who's the actual doer? Obviously, we're going to need some subject matter experts to tell us about why this program is the best program in the entire country and why we should have all these students come here. So they're going to have stakeholders in different pieces of the university as well. I'll show you in a second that we actually do want to map out that process and see what it looks like. And of course, who has the final word? Who is the person who says yay or nay to see the content? And how do we get that done in a strategic way instead of just a fire drill way? This is one of the things I think that appeals to a lot of us as content creators, being able to put some process and strategy around building our content instead of just being reactionary to everything. And it lets you get a little bit ahead of things, and it hopefully will make your life be a little bit more streamlined and easy as well. It's really important to identify who those champions are, though, because those are the people, you can't do this on your own. Really, I think that's the bottom line, is you need to figure out who the champions are within the university and within the different departments and get them to buy into the fact that we're doing this kind of strategy and we're going to put this in place and we need your help. Right? And we identify you as a champion, as somebody who's really got a lot to offer to this process. The sooner you can identify those people and get people fired up about it, really the better off you're going to be from trying to, push that boulder up the hill. So here's an example of one of the tools we use, a content workflow diagram. This can be done in all kinds of different ways. This one's just simply done in PowerPoint with some of the different pieces of it. So this is actually an example of how content is created for social media for a school that we work with. So the first stage is that it's requested. It either comes in through a request form or it's dictated by the content calendar that our marketing team has been put together there. It's requested by marketing from the content calendar. Sometimes it's from admissions. They'll come in as a request form. Sometimes it's one of their remote campuses. They have a communications team that also sometimes has requests. And usually anybody can kind of fall into this, hey, I've got a great idea for social media. I'm going to go ahead and fill out the request form. So there's an other. So they use the request form as one of their tools to really kind of streamline that information. So instead of getting 35 emails about social media post ideas, they can just say, hey, go to this really simple form we've created for you, and they all get streamlined into one spreadsheet on the back end, which makes it much, much easier to kind of compare those things with their content calendar. This is specifically really important for social media because everybody's doing social media and they get a ton of ideas about it, right? Like I have a Facebook and a Twitter and an Instagram and a LinkedIn all of my own. So of course I've got ideas about how this should be done. It's going to be a little bit different than requesting ideas in, say, a view book or something. So after the things are requested and there is a request for content comes in, it goes through that kind of wall of marketing strategy, which is owned by the marketing department there. So there are decisions made at that point based on a litmus test that they have developed internally, whether this fits our brand, whether this fits our voice, whether this fits our goals of the social media channels. And it also decided at that point which, if any, of the social media channels should these really be on. So that's helpful, and it's important to make sure that you're keeping that marketing strategy piece in there. It's created either by marketing or sometimes they have a subject matter expert who will create these things for them if it's like a picture from an event or something like that. And then from the creation of the copy graphics, landing pages, interactive pieces, it moves off to whether through an email to either approve or edit it. So it needs to be approved by marketing, or they actually go through compliance a lot for any kind of contest they have, legal. So edits go back and they rotate through that process as they're editing, and then it goes into the published bucket where it's either scheduled to be published or entered and published immediately by marketing. So you can see how having this sort of thing mapped, you guys are probably already doing it because you have content that's being produced. Having it mapped for every different type of content that you're putting out there really helps you see where the redundancies are and where you might be able to plug in tools like that request form, for example. That was sort of a problem because it started out where they were getting emails from all over the place, and we talked to them about how we can streamline the process. So this is the streamlined version. Pretty cool, right? Another tool that's really helpful in the analyze stage of this is the personas. A lot of you probably worked on personas before, but basically what you're doing is you're taking all of the data that you have about your incoming class, about some of the people that are there already in your university, and taking that data and crunching it into kind of a law of averages, right? So you want to have a person that you can actually think about writing to, using things like background information, their demographics, what their goals might be, what their challenges are, how we should be talking to them from a marketing perspective. And if you were going to go up and talk to this kid for just a couple of minutes and say why you should come to my school, what would you say? What words should you use to talk to them? So having that kind of understanding of the motivation of your students helps you understand how to put that right message to the right person at the right time. Plus, it makes the writing a lot easier. So we've learned a lot already in our analyze stage. We've learned what type of content we have. We've learned whether it's any good. We're learning who's in charge and how that process works. And we also talked about really analyzing who our content or our target audience is. So it's time to move on to the strategy phase. We have all this information. What can we do with that? One of the first things that you're going to want to do when you're looking at strategizing is understanding where you have holes in your content right now. That's one of the easiest things, to do a gap analysis. I typically like to do this based on a couple of things, a couple of tools I'll show you in a second, but I always start with the information architecture and eyeball things and see what seems to be missing and what seems to be right. So the tools that we use to get a little bit more data behind this to back up our gap analysis, one of the things that we like to do, we go out to Canvas for this, and you guys can do it too, it's a great exercise. It's called a card sort. Card sorts are pretty straightforward. They are sorting cards. So you take your information architecture that you've either crawl using a tool or that you've painstakingly made by hand, and you print out a label for every single piece of information that you have there, every single one. So your admissions page will be on a label, your alumni homepage will be on a label, your news story will be on a label. And you take those labels and you put them on index cards and then mix them all up. Make sure they're mixed up. And then you bring in your prospective students, you bring in your current students, you bring in your faculty and staff, you even bring in, do it with your own team, do it with your web team, and sit down and have them sort them. Take all those cards and put them in whatever order they think makes the most sense. The real goal of this is to break any of those natural ties or natural assumptions that we have, because we're used to our website. We know where things are, right? But we want to know how a prospective student would think about where should scholarship information go in the grand scheme of things with all the rest of this content, right? And then we can either confirm that we know where things should go, or we can say, holy cow, we have no idea where these things should have gone, and everybody disagrees on the content. Sometimes we see that happen too. And it gives us a really good leg to stand on to understand, what changes we can make and where the gaps are. The other thing that does too is it really helps with buy-in too. So if you're working with a group of people on campus that you know that you need their buy-in is very critical, doing a card sort exercise with them not only can teach you a lot, but it can help them really buy into the process and the work that you're doing. Usually when we have those groups together, we also do a focus group too. And we'll sit down with them either before or after we've done the card sort and talk to them about some of the things that they were looking for, some of their basic feelings, some of the things that they wish they could see on the website and what's most important to them. Here's an example of some of the information that we got doing a project with Creighton School of Law. So the prospective students and the current students told us that, and law school is a little bit different, right? Because they're really, really interested in things like that 1L class profile. They want to know what the current 1L students look like so they can figure out if they can get in or not. So having that conversation with them really helped us understand that a little bit better. Some other things on here that they were interested in. How is the application process different? Is it different? What are your success rates? What are grads doing after Creighton? Networking in graduate schools and law schools and adult education is so, so, so important. So that's really, really critical to this group of kids. Other stats, some stories. Over and over and over again, when we work with students and we do these focus groups, they tell us that they want to see themselves there. They want to see a website that looks like them, feels like them, that feels like home to them. I think that's a really critical piece to take away from that for any content strategy. So some other tools that you can use in this kind of strategized phase to understand where there might be some gaps. I mentioned I love Google Analytics. You can't expect to see a presentation from me without a couple of Google Analytics slides. So one that's really, really helpful in understanding the site search report or understanding your content strategy and where there might be holes is a site search report. If you have site search set up on your website, which hopefully you do, you can go in, it's under behavior and under site search and look at the terms. This is actually an example from a couple of days from our website. What this tells you is that people are coming out, in this case, people are looking for our webinars. Maybe our webinars aren't easy enough for people to find. Maybe that's something that we can try to make some changes to make things better. So there's definitely some real numbers, hard data that you can pull out of this to help attribute changes. Another analytics report that's helpful in the strategized phase is looking just at your content reports. We've talked about this before in previous webinars, but if people come out to your website and they don't like something, they're probably just going to bail. They're not going to send you an email and tell you how terrible your website was or that they were really confused. So what we want to look for is your regular page reports and see what are the pages that people like, that they're consuming, that they go to a lot. Which pages have really high bounce rates? Where are we seeing problems? Which pages have the highest exit rates where people are leaving the site? Is that good or bad? Also time on site. So by looking at the way people are consuming your current content, you can make some pretty clear assumptions about what content works with your audience and what you should be creating more of. The next piece of strategize is trying to understand how people are going to find us. And as you're creating your content, making it with a plan. So this picture cracks me up, sorry. Whether you're really targeting search engines, which hopefully you are, tune into Michael's webinar in a month about SEO. You really should be looking for direct referral traffic too from other websites, of course social media, which we'll talk more about with Haley in a couple of weeks, and different campaign tracking, which I'll talk to you a little bit about later on in this webinar. So we want to make sure that as we're building our content, it is built to be shared, built to be consumed, really with the user in mind. Another tool that you can use to make sure that you're found is SEO. Just to really touch on the high level of the things that every single page on your website should have, they should be uniquely valuable. Value is really our way of future-proofing from an SEO perspective. Content strategy and SEO fall very, very closely together as SEO is starting to evolve from just, basic keyword searches and putting keywords on pages and some of those kind of black hat link building techniques into really the content as king model. So having really uniquely fantastic, valuable content is going to be half the battle. Obviously, you're going to want to be thought accessible. If you tell Google not to crawl your site, you're obviously not going to be in Google Index. So we want to make sure that you're bot accessible. Phenomenal user experience, again, kind of contributing to that uniquely valuable point. Wanting everybody to be able to come to your website and say, wow, this is great, and then they're more likely to share it, more likely to stay, more likely not to hit back. Built to be shared. Anything that makes sense should have the sharing buttons on it. I'm thinking for higher ed, that's typically things like news, events, things that are more topical and less evergreen. Keyword targeted, keywords still do matter. They're still important, especially if you're looking at large keyword themes. Everybody on this call probably has at least one, maybe two, possibly 3 or 4 mobile devices, right? Some of you might even be joining this on a mobile device right now. You'll want to make sure that every page that you build going forward, the content has to look great and still be uniquely valuable on different devices. As this is actually the first year, 2014 is the year that mobile web traffic has overtaken desktop. So you cannot ignore how important device ready is. And then, of course, metadata inclusive, meaning that all of your pages should be properly optimized from a metadata perspective with good title tags, good meta descriptions, all of those things that basically are giving search engines a blueprint to what your content is about. So some tips on how to actually scale your content. This is from a great article on searchenginewatch.com. Definitely recommend that website for all the latest of what's going on as far as not just search engine watch, but digital marketing. So utilizing an RSS feed, blog promotion. If you don't have an RSS feed set up, people still do use this. Things like FeedBurner actually give you the option to subscribe by email too, which is, that's how I usually do most of my RSS subscriptions now. After poor iGoogle went away and Google Reader, but yes, that's still very important. Including your content in any kind of existing communication that you have. So things like newsletter or other regular emails. If you have that really great piece of content, you've created it, make sure you go put it out on all of your social websites. That's exactly the type of content that should go out there. You can buy attention using Google AdWords or other search engine marketing, or even, Facebook ads of promoted tweets, featured LinkedIn stories, these sorts of things, buying that advertising. You can get included in different blog roundups. So some of you are probably thinking of specific ones for the higher level at the university. Don't forget about some of your specific programs and some of the specific professors who might be doing a blog that really are an expert on a certain area, and a blog roundup that would make sense for them to contribute to. The old expression, scratching some back. Make sure you're linking out to the relevant sources, and hopefully they'll be linking back to you, which is good from an SEO perspective, and also driving traffic. Anything that has beautiful graphics on it. We've seen over and over again, the data doesn't lie. Beautiful graphics really do increase the shareability, the virality of your content. So don't underestimate how good photography and beautiful graphic work can make a difference. Linking to your own previous posts in the content. We do this on a pretty regular basis. If you have something that makes sense on your site, think like the user. Would the user want to go read this other post in context? Link to it. It's only going to help you. Tapping into trends in the industry. We say kind of stoking the fire, if you will. That helps. Make your audience look smart and make people feel important. Those two are great. Imagine doing a profile on one of your really smart professors, talking about how great they are, making him feel important, making him look smart. Not only does it make your institution look smart because you have this great guy employed with you, but he feels good about it, and he's going to send it out to his friends and organically share that information. Sometimes we have share to enter or download. So it's a great idea if you want to get a PDF that you're providing or enter a contest. You have to share so many times. Try converting that really good piece of content that you have to other mediums. So if you have something that's working really, really well on social media, on Facebook, maybe it's time to blow out a landing page about it and really capitalize on that. And then, of course, you can share things internally. Don't forget that your internal campus is your own tool. People should be fired up about it. If that content is good, send it out with your internal team and say, hey, encourage sharing this. Send this to everyone you know. This is really cool content. Not every piece of content is going to be that good, but work to a point where you don't feel bad about telling your internal team to do it because it really is so good, right? Maybe not that the problem's not with your internal team sharing it, but maybe it's with the content in the first place. Great. So now that we have some kind of pieces in place about how we're going to be able to get people to find our content, how do we know what's missing from our content? Let's talk about actually creating it and seeing how this can be aided with a couple of good tools. So again, the really goal of this whole process is talking about getting the right audience, the right time, and the right message. These three things together is when, in some of the examples I'll show you at the end of the presentation, your content really sings. So this is the goal of all of this. Excuse me. So the idea is, how do we do this consistently? Holy cow, the thing that we use the most, it's so simple. It's a Word document and it's a content template. So remember all those things we talked about? We needed to make sure that we had the right meta descriptions on. We wanted to have the right strategy involved. We want to make sure that the content and all the copy is in place. We want to have great photography and video and other multimedia tools. No piece of content should get posted to your website until it goes through this litmus test of being able to check all of the boxes in the content template. Once you have that template, you can use it to really use it to message map to the inbound marketing funnel. So we talked about the different stages. We wanted the right person at the right time. The right time basically means, where are they in the stages of inbound? Are you still working on attracting them from being strangers to being visitors for the first time? Or is it somebody who's visited your site before and you're working on converting them into students? Or are they already students and you're working on really trying to delight them and show them how great your school is so that they become promoters? If we can get people to that promoter level, then we have we just doubled our, tripled, quadrupled our marketing team, right? Because we have people out there really sharing the love for us, which is awesome. So thinking about this kind of breakout, this is one of the pieces from the content template. We really like to use this writing notes piece. It matches up with some of the strategies from the Blaze that we talked about previously. The very first two things we're looking at here is the audience. So is it a prospective student? And the stage. Are they already, have they applied? Are they just looking? Have they never met us before? Or are they actually attending our school? So which piece here are they in the process? Being able to understand that about your content helps your writers. It helps you understand which persona they should be writing to. It helps you answer the right questions for those students. So being able to use especially that audience and stage piece, but then in addition, strategically their goal. We want to know what the user is trying to do. We want to know what they're feeling, right? So you can really appeal to the empathetic side. The primary message. What is the purpose of this page? What are we trying to tell them here? What do we want them to do? What's our call to action? And of course, what's our goal for it? Hopefully our goal lines up pretty closely with the primary message and the call to action. But sometimes it doesn't. So being able to track those things separately and put them right into the content template as we're doing the writing and the working is tremendously helpful. Who has a style guide? I'm imagining nobody raising their hand. Hopefully some of you do. Basically, you've got to have one of these. The style guide is so important to your content Bible. It's not necessarily fun to create, but it's something that all of your writers need to have a good understanding of. So not only are they speaking to the right audience at the right time, but they're speaking with the right voice and tone. Some more content kind of tips along the line. If you haven't read this book, Content Rules, it's fantastic. I recommend it to everybody. But some kind of things that you're keeping in mind, how to write actually really good content. So this is for the writers in the room. First, embracing that you're a publisher. Everyone is now. Try to have an insight, right? Try to have some kind of insight that makes you original, and try to have an objective too. So don't just write fluff. Write things that are original and have a purpose. Like humans, we're all people. Search engines are getting better and better and better at speaking human too. It's mind-boggling how smart they're becoming. So you're not going to need to do any kind of weird stuff. Just write to people, don't write to machines. Consider each platform's strength and then reimagine things and change them a little bit as you move them to each place. So remember we were talking about like those historical photos? Yeah, of course they make sense to put online, but maybe you can make a photo gallery of them. Maybe you drop in some of those historical photos that you have into your view book to help, sell the tradition. So there's lots of different ways that you can really work on the different platforms to share those in different ways. Solve or share. Don't show. Don't just sell. People don't want to just be sold things. Show, don't tell. Visual is so important. Do something unexpected. Stoking the campfire, which we talked a little bit about already. Find something that's happening and put your 2 cents into it. Create wings and roots. And by that we mean give your content something that's shareable, and also roots really a reason to be shared, right? So it needs to be good enough to be shared in the first place. And then play to your strengths. You should know what your institution does really well and capitalize on that. Start with those things. Don't say we wish that we were good at this. We're going to try to build content around it. Look and see what you actually are really good at and go from there. So we use this analogy here, create once, publish everywhere. This is really something we've actually worked with a couple of clients that are doing this phenomenally well, where they've set up something on the back end to be able to create something kind of from a blog content perspective, but publish it in lots of places. So what we're talking about here is, first of all, using things on lots of different platforms. Wonderful, but even better if you can get to a point where you write this really great bio about one of your students, a success story about some really cool things they've done in the biology program. Maybe it makes sense for that to be on your homepage, but it actually lives in the biology section. But it also should be linked from the admissions page and maybe also linked from the sciences department. So if you can get to a point where you're building things out and have a flexible enough CMS that you can easily link these things from all over the place, holy cow, that's kind of the moment. It really is beautiful if you can get that straightened out, and work with a couple of people who are doing a fantastic job of it. A content calendar is also so important. I don't know how many times I've talked to people about, usually it's analytics I'm talking about, but and I ask who have a content calendar, and people don't have them. Content calendars from a marketing perspective are really important in streamlining all of your information. And once you have all this strategy from a content strategy perspective, you really do need to have a plan to execute it for your ongoing things. This is one obviously looks heavy into social, but we tie in social, we tie in email marketing, we tie in any kind of website copy or blogs that need to be created. Really for that external non-evergreen content should be calendared someplace. If you calendar it someplace, then you can tie your strategy right into this document as well that we just talked about. So you'll know who they are that you're supposed to be talking to and what stage of the process they're in, and how this Facebook post that you're talking about really represents the questions that that specific person has. How many of you, I do this all the time with my poor husband. I say, oh, did you hear this? And he'll say, yeah, and ask me a question to follow up. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I just read the headline. So I know that, at least for my own use case, that a lot of what gets read out there on the internet is literally just being read as the headline. And the ones that I do click on and find out more information on, I was enticed by how well that headline was written. So here's actually a nice little study that was done about the types of headlines and which one of them are really preferred, so which ones got clicked on more frequently. You probably will look at this list and you'll say, oh yeah, that makes sense. I've seen this all over Facebook, right? So if there's a number in the headline, that seems to be the most popular. Reader addressing, ways that you need to, be drinking tea, ways you need to make drinking tea more delightful. So talking to you, how-tos, just a normal basic headline, or a question. So all of these things are successful. I think that obviously that the numbers seem to be helping a lot. So having a good headline that really does tell what your content is about is really productive. Excuse me. All right, so the last piece here in our cycle is the measurement piece. We really want to make sure that all of this work we're doing, you want to know how are you going to be successful, right? So digging into a little bit more with the measurement. So you probably are asking, is my content working? My question to you is going to be, what's your goal? With anything that you're measuring, start with a goal. You always want to know, why do I have a website? What's the point of this, right? So in this case, we're looking at it and saying, is it engagement? Are you an alumni site where your whole intention of measuring your content is to see if you can get people to stay on the site longer and click more pages? Is it inquiries? Maybe it's people signing up for your newsletter. Maybe it's people liking you on Facebook, or probably for just about everybody on the call, applications would probably be a pretty good goal, right? Trying to get more people to apply. So start by thinking about what that goal is, and then we can start answering the question if you actually are achieving it or not. So analytics is obviously a really easy way to tell if your website goals are being met. You can tell all through the reporting whether or not different pieces of content are contributing to your goal completion. So in the case of maybe wanting to set up a goal around people filling out a form, in this case it's to subscribe for daily gospel reflection. We can on the back end go in and set up a URL destination goal, and anybody who gets to that thank you page, we can tell what other things they've done on your website. What other pieces of content did they read? How long have they been there? Where did they come from in the first place? If we do some content efforts and we really make some changes and we try to improve things along the line, we can also tell if that goal number goes up or down. And we can see if we're actually increasing the number of people who are doing the thing we want them to do on the website. From an engagement perspective, we can also do a goal on your site just around pages per visit, or perhaps visit duration. So if you are in that engagement bucket, that might be the only thing that you're interested in. It's really, are people spending more time with us? This type of goal is really helpful here as well. A tool that you can use to really help track the content is campaign tracking. We talked a lot about this in our a couple of webinars ago about analytics. It's a really simple tool that if you're using Content Calendar, you can plug right into that workflow. Basically what it is though is, if I post something on Facebook about a certain piece of content, I can add a little bit of URL parameter to the end of that URL. So when somebody clicks on it from Facebook and they come back to my website, I can tell exactly where they came from. I know that they came from Facebook, and I know that they came from this specific post. The cool thing is then I can segment my traffic by that specific post and see how many of those people were engaged by that piece of social media content and then came through and did the thing that I want them to do, right? That's exactly what we need to know about all of our content efforts to know if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So not just on your website with goals, but also with some of the social media and other content pieces that you're sending out into the world, we can track how well people are converting on those things too. It's also really helpful for us to look into a little bit of referral traffic. This is another analytics report under acquisition, and I like to look at it from all referrals. This is helpful so that you know how people are getting to your site in the first place and what content is drawing them in. So if I see that there's people coming from social media networks or perhaps another website that's similar to ours, it's really beneficial for me to understand that so that I can either continue to nurture those relationships if they're another website, or understand how my content is playing on the website. And then, of course, dashboards. This isn't one of those things where you just are done with content when you're done with it, right? I'm sure you guys know that. Content strategy is really a process. And so is analytics in measuring how well these things are doing. So the way to really integrate looking at analytics metrics into your daily life is to create some dashboards. These dashboards are snippets of the right reports. So the reports we just looked at could be in this dashboard. Some of the campaign information could be in. Obviously, goals could be in here. So we could keep track, every day, every week, every month of the number of goals that are being converted on our website. It would be emailed to me, emailed to you, emailed to anybody you want to send it to. Usually I like to ask first so that people aren't inundated with reports. But it's a really good way to monitor your content, see which pages are most popular, see what efforts you've been doing that might have been successful, and keep it top of mind. Excuse me. So we talked about kind of these 4 different stages. We talked about the analysis. We talked about the strategy. We talked about the creation of the content and how to do that really consistently and well. And then measuring, how to know if any of this stuff is actually working. I'd like to show you now a couple of examples of some really cool content out there that really, in order to put it on this list, I wanted it to either be an example of a really cool trend going forward that we're seeing a lot right now in content, or I wanted to see some things where we see the exact right audience, right? So the right person, the right time, the right message. Where you know that somebody's done some research, knows their audience really well, and the content feels perfect for them, okay? So this first one, VCU. I love their website. I love the bright colors of it. I like the nice picture. It's cool because they have a rotating banner up top that really, remember I said most of the students want to see themselves here? That's great, and this is exactly how we want to show students that they fit in here. But what's really cool about this page, in addition to just being a good-looking site, is that they've pulled in, towards the bottom of the page, all of these different quotes, people reviewing them, things from social media. I think that this is really, really, really cool. Whenever we're talking about doing landing pages for like a campaign on AdWords, we always talk about how it's really important to show the results, and it's so much better if it comes from a third person, right? A quote saying, or a review saying, this place is really great. We love my education here. It really helped me. It was easy on my life. It really put me ahead in my career. Any of those sorts of things are really, really good at conveying that message, especially if you have a picture of that person with you too. So the fact that they have this right on their homepage, talking the good things that Forbes has said about them, that U.S. News people, and then even something that's dynamic coming in from Twitter. So very good job there in getting some interesting content in front of people that's kind of user submitted and it feels really authentic. Another site that we think is great is, this is actually Michigan, off of University of Michigan's homepage. Towards the bottom of this, you can tell that they've done this huge content effort with basically pulling in pictures all the time throughout the day, showing people what it's like on campus. So if you remember, again, students want to see themselves there. There's literally, if you scroll down this page, a bunch more pictures, kind of in a Pinterest-y layout almost. And you can see that they're dated. They come in every 10 minutes or so. So somebody's put together a huge content effort at Michigan. If there's anybody at Michigan on the phone, email me afterwards and tell me about it. That basically they're constantly putting up information and pictures of being on campus and what it's like to be there, and tying in all kinds of different people behind this content effort. And then the cool thing is they didn't hide it someplace. They put it right smack dab on their homepage. So very cool content in Michigan there. Another piece of Michigan's website that's great is their student housing, the student life housing section of their website. You'll notice if you've been on Michigan's website, this one actually looks completely different. This is just targeted towards that very niche audience. So they know exactly who their audience is. They know exactly what phase they are in their process, right? They've already come to school, or they've already been accepted to school, and they're trying to figure out where in the world I'm going to live. Obviously, this is a totally different use case than the rest of their website, so they gave it its own kind of microsite look and feel, right? And it answers all their questions. They really focused on looking at the questions that specific audience has and answering those in a really easy way, in fun way. It's good, bright colors, menus, movies, you'll like it here kind of a feel. This is a client that we work with on Nazarene University, and they're doing some really, really cool stuff. This is an example of a microsite that they've put together that's really about the value. So it's some financial information about coming out to school at NNU. And they've created this little calculator, basically, to show you return on investment. So a lot of times we'll see schools that put together things like a tuition calculator or a scholarship calculator, those sorts of things. I like the way that they really phase this as kind of more of a positive, an ROI tool. I mean, look how much you'll probably get out of this when you put in. So you put in your GPA, you put in your either ACT or SAT score, and then the career that you want to go into. And it's really, really neat. I actually spent some time playing with it. Oh, maybe I should have gone into this. So a very cool tool there. And again, remember we talked about providing value. Value is what really, you're answering the question that your specific student needs. So if I'm trying to figure out if I can go to this school or if I can go to any school and I can afford to do it, they're helping solve that problem. If you're the one that helps solve that problem, then all of a sudden you have that kind of warm spot in their heart, and hopefully when they're really considering where they're going to go, they'll come and consider you. This is a little bit different. This is a UI's foundation. So the University of Iowa, their foundation's website. They've redone this recently, and it's really very beautiful. But the thing that I like particularly about this piece of it is, first, they have this great picture of campus where if you've ever been, this is the iconic kind of old Capitol building on Iowa campus. And if you've ever been a student there, you've walked those stairs 700 times. So if I'm talking to alumni and I'm talking to somebody who wants to, they're trying to get some financial support from, obviously that's a great picture and image to put up there. But the really cool thing is they've got that progress bar. They designed it really nicely, and they can show you how close we're getting. And I'm sure that if you come back over time, that it's dynamic and it continues to grow. So what they're doing there is they know their audience. They know that they're alumni. They know that emotionally, remember that piece of strategy in the content template talking about what their emotions are, what the user's feelings are. The user they want the user to feel kind of reminiscent and happy and remembering their good times at school, but they also want them to be kind of challenged to move that bar. So if I know I can donate and that bar will move up, that's pretty cool. This is more of a trend. This is from Harvard's website, and Harvard is among a lot of other schools that we're seeing that their homepages are becoming very, very news-focused. I think that this is in response to a lot of things, but primarily it's probably to the people like me jumping up and down and saying, from an SEO perspective, you need to have lots of good new content coming on your site all the time. So this has been a big trend lately. I think that it's really helpful if you have really current content and it's frequently being updated. So you'll see like there are featured events. They have some from the 3rd of April, 4th of April. They have a couple every day. So this is going to change all the time. In addition to showing off some of the things that they have going on campus. Excuse me. William & Mary's website is, first of all, really beautiful. They do a good job in this top level here of, again, showing us what it's like to be on campus. We actually were speaking with one of our clients not long ago, and it's a really, really famous institution that has some iconic things. And it's like we were talking to our students, and our students really weren't interested in seeing these iconic, landmarks on campus. They want to know remember what it's like to actually be on campus, right? All of those alumni are more interested in seeing something and connecting with something like this. An empty hallway with somebody sitting on a bench where yes, I remember that building, I had a class there, versus that iconic, thing on campus that is in all the brochures. So first, I like that about this, but the reason I brought this one in is really to highlight the student blogs that they're highlighting. This is still the homepage. It's just a screenshot a little bit further down the homepage here, and their student blogs are very prominent, which is really cool because it tells me as a prospective student that not only are their students engaged and I can read about them and read from them and understand if I'm the right fit for the school or not, but it tells me that they really value their students and that they value homepage real estate, and quite frankly make them look pretty cool. You know, it's got some good design there. So it's sort of a soft recruiting thing by putting that up here, but it's something that is very, very authentic to the student experience. And again, it's the right content to the right person at the right time. If I'm the student coming out to this page and I'm a prospective student and looking at their homepage and deciding, do I fit here? Is this where I want to go to school? It's very quick and easy for me to say, oh, there's a student blog, I'm going to read that. Oh, yeah, I think I do fit like this person. I seem like I'm similar. I want to be friends with this person. So it's a great way to answer that question and have the right people there. This is the Chicago School of Professional Psychology microsite. Anybody who's not familiar with them, they do a lot of work with really their prospective student is the world changer, right? They're the ones that want to go out and get the psychology degrees to change the world. They're the ones that are starting nonprofits and working with children and doing some really, really amazing things. So for their microsite, what they wanted to focus on is that the empathy and the emotions that come from the prospective student saying, yeah, I do want to change the world. They actually created this whole website so that they wouldn't have to be constricted by any of their evergreen content and the typical, you know, design and look and feel. If anybody was on our microsite webinar a couple of weeks ago with Brenda, this is actually one of the examples we used. It's a great example of a microsite. But really, they use this kind of stunning photography and stunning imagery to tell us and answer that question specifically to the prospective student that really wants to be sold, wants to be emotionally engaged with it, and using the great photography to do that. Further down the page, they also call it, I like the way that they actually talk about this in the content. So not, you know, what programs do we offer? The title of this section is How to Be the Change. And then it talks about the different programs that they offer. So you notice that the content strategy of speaking about being the change and speaking to those ethos, to those prospective students, is not just in that initial screen grab of the top of the page, but it's used throughout and woven through the entire page and how they talk about everything, which is really, really important from a consistent and authenticity standpoint. Oh my gosh, I love this example. This is another one from NNU. I think they're doing a lot of things great with their content. So this is an example of where their undergraduate prospective students need to go get in touch with the admissions counsel and look at the information they give them. I think this is phenomenal. A lot of times you get to the admissions section and there's a phone number or maybe an email to request info, and that's all you get. But imagine if I can go through this list and they have many more than 3 people on this list and figure out which one of these people I connect with just by the information that they give me, and then email them or call them directly. Not only does it show that, I'm going to talk to a real person, but it also shows that they really care. Like they're giving you an emotional connection with the person you're going to be talking to on the phone before you even get down the line. So it also provides some accountability too. So it really puts the focus on kind of the customer service aspect of this. And I know that I'm talking to a real person who is accountable to writing back to me because I'm writing to their real email and not just going into a bucket with a bunch of other people. Very cool. This is Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. I like this one as an example because they have a really, really unique student group. They know that they are trying to find, first of all, their site's beautiful because they're a design school, which they have to be, right? If you're a design school and your website's not very pretty or orange. But in addition to being really beautiful, they have such a specific audience. And they know that their students aren't necessarily going to be the same people who go to undergrad at the 4-year state college. There are some of the students that maybe they're a little bit different. And really, if you look at the wording that they have on their page, they're the ones that are trying to, you know, kind of find their path and discover their path. So you know that they've done some research into understanding who their students are and writing copy and things on and imagery on the page that really makes sense of it. So here's an example. If you click on this girl over here who wants to do the fashion design, look at their program page. Their program page is like an interview with this girl. So they pull it all the way through. That's kind of different. Very cool website. I love this one. This is for Cogswell College immersion program. This is basically you spend 5 days on campus. You can see their campus is there in the middle of Facebook and Google and Yahoo and LinkedIn and Intel and Tesla and all these really cool Silicon Valley companies. So the thing that's so cool about this is this top graphic. Oh my gosh, I look at that graphic and I'm sold on the program without even knowing what the dates are or how much it is. I want to go spend 5 days right there. They know their audience. They know exactly what those people are looking for. And the last one, I know we're running short on time here. I'll stick around for a couple of minutes and answer questions. But this is an undergraduate specific admission site. And I don't know if I've ever seen an admission site so specific to knowing exactly who their audience is. The small Christian college in California, and I mean, it's hot pink and rainbows. And if you click on this girl's image here, she actually has a little pop-up that tells you this really personal touch about what's going on. Again, that experience and that personal touch, which really is what they're going for as far as a brand attribute. So very cool website. Like I said, I hope that was helpful. I'm looking for questions if anybody's got any. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anybody's got questions. So thank you guys so much for your time. This will be sent out and shared with you later this week or Monday morning.